In this video, I'm going to show you how to create and manage EC2 containers within a Linux terminal rather than the dashboard. So the first thing that you're going to need is obviously an AWS account, and we're going to create a new user for this tutorial. So you can follow along if you'd like to. I'm going to create a new user. I'm just going to call it AWS CLI demo. Click on next. We're going to manually attach policies. Let's just give it administrator access. Click next. Forget the tags for now, and we're going to create a user. Now we need to create an access key. We're going to create an access key for the command line interface. Click next. Sorry, we have to understand. Yeah. Forget the description for now. Okay, so now we've got an access key and a secret access key. Like the name suggests, keep this secret access key secret. Don't tell anyone, keep it private. You can download a CSV file here if you like, just so you don't forget it. Okay, fine, we can download it. It doesn't matter that I show it you now because obviously I'm going to delete this user afterwards, so it's not a problem. But now we're kind of ready. This is some of the prerequisites on the AWS dashboard side. Let's go to our terminal. So I've got an Ubuntu 22.04 system running. So the first thing you need to do is obviously install the AWS CLI. So you want to do apt install AWS CLI. I've already got it installed, so that's fine. Once it's installed, just check AWS version. Whoops. Just make sure you've got it. Okay, amazing. So what we need to do now is we need to configure the CLI to kind of our account. So we're going to do AWS, let me clear the screen, AWS configure. So run that command. It's going to ask you for the AWS access key. So we're going to go back, copy the access key and paste it in. And then for the secret access key, and obviously, like I said, I'm going to show it to you, or you're going to see it, but it doesn't matter for this particular circumstance. Default region, US East 1, I believe. Yeah, US East 1. Output format JSON, and hit enter. So now we've configured our AWS CLI to be able to use our AWS account. So that's the prerequisites done. Now, an EC2 container is essentially a virtual machine that you're renting from AWS. In order to interact with this virtual machine, to install your services or whatever it is that you're planning on doing with that EC2 container, you're probably going to need remote access to it. To gain remote access, we can use the SSH protocol. However, we need to exchange SSH keys first between our two machines before we are allowed to access it. So we need a key pair. Again, I'm sure you're aware of this. If you go to the dashboard, I'm sure you've created keys before, but how do we do it from the terminal? So from the terminal, we want to run the command AWS EC2 create key pair, and then we're going to give it some options. The first one is key name, sorry, and we're going to give it a name like AWS CLI key pair. You can call it whatever you want. The next is query, and we're just going to enter key. Don't worry about this for now. Key material. And then we're going to specify the output text. Output is text. And then we're going to redirect that into a file. So we'll just call it AWS CLI key pair.pem. All right, so this is going to create a key pair with this name, and it's going to output it to this file that we're going to create. So hit enter. Okay, if we just ls, we've got a AWS CLI key pair. We can cut that if we want, just to have a look and see what's inside it. So this is the private key. Okay, now, well, one thing that we need to do before we go ahead is if we do ls-l and we have a look at the permissions, this private key has write permissions. The root user has write permissions. Now we need to completely remove all the permissions. We need to completely make this private. So what we want to do is we just want to run the command chmod 400 and then we'll do AWS CLI. Okay, now if we do ls-l, we should see that there are no permissions, so we can only read this, and that's exactly what we need. So we've got a key pair. The next thing we need to do is create a security group. Again, as I'm sure you're aware, a security group is essentially a firewall. It allows you to control the inbound and outbound traffic rules to the EC2 container so that you can, clearly define what can connect to it and what can't, and what ports can connect to it, etc. So this is an essential part of cloud architecture. So let's create a security group in the terminal. We can do AWS EC2, and then I'm going to run the command create security group. We're going to give it a few options. The first one is group name. So we're just going to give it, I don't know, my group. Let's call it AWS CLI demo _SG. And then we're going to give it a description. Again, this is best practice, but we don't really need it. Security group for AWS CLI demo. Obviously, this would be more applicable to your actual scenario. What is it saying? AWS EC2. Why is that not working? Oh, I didn't put this in brackets, I think. Okay, yeah. So now we've got a group ID, right? So we've created a security group. However, when you first create a security group, it has no inbound rules. Therefore, no inbound traffic is allowed into the EC2 container. So essentially, you can't connect to it until you add some inbound rules for the security group. So if, for example, if we wanted to now try and SSH onto our EC2 container, once we initialize it, we wouldn't be able to connect because we don't have any inbound rules. So let's create some inbound rules. So if we're going to want to SSH onto our EC2 container, SSH works via the TCP protocol and it connects via port 22. So we're going to need to include this in our rules. So what we want to do is run the command AWS EC2, and we're going to do authorize security group ingress, right? We're going to give it some options here. First one is group ID. I cleared the screen, one sec. AWS EC2, what was the command? All right, so I completely forgot what that security group was. So you can run the command if you want to know what security groups you've got. You can run this command AWS EC2 describe security groups. So this is the one that I wanted. So I'm just going to copy that. Okay, so sorry, where was I? Yeah, so we're going to create the inbound rule. So we're going to run AWS EC2 authorize security group ingress. Authorize security group ingress. So we're going to give it the group ID as the first option. Okay, then we're going to give it the protocol. So if we're going to use this for SSH, then the protocol is TCP. Then we're going to give it a port number, and that's port 22. And finally, we need to give it a CIDR, which is the IP address of the machine that you're going to connect with, right? So you can specify different IP addresses. So if you want only a certain machine to be able to SSH onto your EC2 container, then you can use that IP address. For this case, we're just going to allow any IP address. We're going to allow any SSH. You're going to allow any machine from any IP address to SSH onto our machine, which obviously isn't, standard or best practice, but just for this case, we're going to do it. So we're going to do 0.0.0.0/0, and then we're going to hit enter. So now we've got this security group. So now we've got everything in place to be able to actually initialize, start our EC2 container, and then go ahead and interact with it. So our EC2 container now accepts incoming TCP traffic on port 22 from any IP address. To launch an instance, we can run the following command. AWS, in fact, actually one sec, yeah. So we're going to do AWS EC2, and we're going to run instances. Now there's quite a few options here. The first one is the image ID. So obviously when you create new EC2 containers, they require a base image. So let's go ahead and just have a look at AMI catalog. So go to your dashboard, type in AMI catalog, and let's just have a look at what we're going to use. So let's just use this one. It doesn't really matter. So let's take this AMI number here, image ID. I'm going to come back to our terminal, and we're going to paste that. So that's the image ID. That's the base image ID that our EC2 container, our virtual machine, is going to be based off of, right? And then obviously from there, we would then install whatever we wanted onto it, whether it be, a web server or whatever. So we've got the image ID. We're going to use count1. Then we're going to need an instance type. All right, so this is your, for example, T2 micro we're going to use, right? This is the free version, but obviously depending on how much resources you require, this instance type would be different. We're going to do T2 micro for this one, and then we need to give it the key name. So we need to exchange the keys. So AWS CLI, what was it? Key pair, I think it was called. And then we're going to pass in the security group IDs, which is this one here. So you could have multiple security groups with different inbound rules, etc. We've only got one for this purpose, or for this demo. So we've got everything we need to run this EC2 container. We've got the image ID, so it knows what kind of base operating system it's going to be based off of. We've got the count, which is 1. We've got the instance type T2 micro, which allocates the amount of RAM and resources, etc. And then we've given it a key name, and we've specified the security group. So we should be able to just hit enter now, and it will go ahead and spin up an EC2 container. Okay, that's great. So it's outputted quite a lot here. But if we have a look, we've got an instance. We've got the instance ID, which is here. We've got the type, etc., etc. So now, let's just go back to our dashboard to have a look and see if we've actually created anything, right? So let's go to our EC2 dashboard. So I didn't have anything running. I should have one running. And I do. And that is the same ID as the one that we saw in our terminal. There you go. 528. 528. Okay, so that's running. Amazing. Let's try an SSH onto the machine now. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So to SSH onto the machine, let's just go onto this instance and let's get the public DNS. That's what we're going to use to point to our machine. So we're going to do SSH -I. We need to give it the path to the key, which in our case is in this current directory, AWS CLI key pair.pem. And then we're going to give it the name, the host name, which I think is AWS. If you don't know, you can go on to where is it? Connect SSH client. So you could just use this. So there you go, EC2 container. I mean, we can just copy that, and usually it's pretty much spot on. Right, so we specify obviously with SSH-I -I, and then we're going to give it the path to the key pair. Then we're going to give it the host name, which is EC2 user, and then we're going to give it the public DNS, or you could use IP address, and the dashboard actually gives this for you. So now when we hit enter, it's going to ask you, this is the first time that you're actually trying to connect. You need to make sure that you exchange the keys. So we're going to click yes, enter yes. And now we've added it, and now as you can see, our host name in the prompt here has changed. So now we're actually in our EC2 container. We can do things, mkdir neuter. All right, we can create directories. We can do whatever we want and install. You know, I don't know. This is Amazon Linux, so if we just do apt install httpd, I don't know if that will work. Yeah, so it doesn't use apt manager. I've not used Amazon Linux before, but anyway, you get the idea. So now we can actually go ahead and do whatever we want. If we want to exit now, right, we've exited, and now we're back into our normal terminal, right, and we can do whatever we want, like I said. So that's just one example of kind of doing something with the EC2 container. There are obviously loads of other stuff we can do. We can have multiple security groups, we can have different rules, etc. Everything that you can do in this dashboard, you can pretty much do via the terminal. So let's just have a quick look and see how to terminate this instance. So it's pretty simple. Just do the command AWS EC2 terminate instances. Give it the instance ID, which I can't remember if I copied it or not. No, I didn't. If we don't, again, if you're not sure what your instance ID was, then you can do AWS EC2 describe instances, and this will give you information about the current running instance. Where's our instance ID? There you go. So let's copy that, and then let's terminate this at AWS EC2 terminate instances, instance IDs, and then we're going to paste in our ID, and that's it, because we've only got one that we're going to stop. Hit enter, and as you can see, we've got it now. It's terminated. It's shutting down. If we go back to our dashboard, we should be able to see that it's either shut down or is shutting down. So a quick look, there you go, shutting down. So this is just a really quick video on kind of how to get started with the AWS CLI. I recommend going to a site, AWS CLI. what was it called? I can't remember what the website was called. But yeah, the AWS CLI documentation is the command reference actually as well. So this is really good. Lists all the commands that you can use in the AWS CLI. So like I said, everything that you can do kind of on the dashboard, you can do programmatically in a terminal. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found something useful. If you did, drop a like, comment below what you want to see next. I cover various topics ranging from programming, AI, blockchain, all that kind of stuff. So let me know what you want to see if you want me to make videos on any particular technologies. But yeah, until then, take it easy and I'll see you on the next one.